Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our shirim on the post-traumatic Torah, the Torah that's uncovered in the shattering of the first luchos and the utilization of the broken shards of that original luchos, with the depth and belief that within the broken shards of the first luchos rest the emergent properties of the second set of luchos, and that the second set of luchos, that post-traumatic Torah, is not something other than the pre-traumatic Torah, but rather within the pre-traumatic Torah, within the original luchos, rests the hidden ingredient necessary that would be presented after the shattering of the original luchos, that would give us the ingredients necessary to build that second form of attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of the Luchos Shnios, which would allow us to connect the end with the beginning, the Lamed and the Beis, and to move from the place of the certainty of the first Luchos into a place of faith that emerges with the second Luchos themselves. Because when things are functioning very smoothly, when things are clarified, so they're operating in their ideal territory, and in that place, things can be grasped. That's the territory of the mind. The mind, modeled under the first luchos, represents the graspability, the mind's capacity to come to know, the mind's capacity to write down and conceptualize the ideas that it would like to seek out. The mind is more focused on an objective principle that I can uncover a particular path towards a particular destination that is fundamental, and I can know the steps that lead towards that destination. I can know the process at the destination, and I can taste the accomplishment of arriving at the destination. The machshava allows a person to categorize reality into the frameworks of thought, to break things down from first principles into the particularities, and then to see how all of the different parts operate within the unity of the whole. The mechanisms of the mind, the science of the mind, the epistemology of the mind, the framework of thinking is always an attempt at domesticating reality. It's always an attempt to tame the chaotic element of reality. The mind is the place of Olam HaTikun. The mind is the place of the first luchos, which are the clear conveying of information that can be grasped by way of objectivity to the degree that each and every person heard Anoichi and Lo Yihya, and it was what it was, and it wasn't some other thing, and it wasn't subject to the subjective interpretation. Rather, it led to the complete shattering of the vessels of the individual because it was an engraving of the direct word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That nevuah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed within the mind of Klal Yisrael by Matan Torah, by Luchos Rishonos. Luchos Rishonos represent clarity. They represent things being as clear as day. Now, the stage of spiritual work associated with the mind is when the individual is still operating under the assumption that the main vessel in which I'm going to be able to find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in reality is the mind, is intellectualization, is thinking, is the domestication of thought, the categorization of the chaos of reality into neat compartments so that the mind has the ability to organize itself. And we see machshava, we see the intellect, we see thought as the crowning jewel of what it means to be a human being in this world. And it makes a lot of sense because the mind seems to be something that is completely separate from any other creature. The capacity of the mind, the properties of thought, the possibility of thought, the potential towards thought, all of these things seem to mark the unique element of what it means to be human. And it's very reasonable to see thought as the seat of experience, as the seat of processing, of receiving the first luchos. But as we've seen, the first luchos break. The first luchos break not accidentally, not symptomatically. It happens to be that it had to be brought out through a tragic experience in the history of Klal Yisrael, which was the Chet HaEgel. But either way, those luchos were written in order to be broken. It was not some secondary accident, but rather it was fundamentally rooted within the originality of the first luchos that it would have the ability to break and give birth to that which was already inherent within it, which is the second luchos. Because we know from Chazal, Ein Adam Oimed al Divrei Torah Ella Imkein Nichshal Bahem, that the individual does not have the capacity of grasping the words of Torah unless they have gone through a process of falling, making a mistake, falling away from clarity into distortion. Another statement from Chazal that implies the same trajectory of the first ideal thing breaking in order to give shape to a second thing that's not ideal, but it's real, and it's specifically in the reality of the second thing that we're capable of beholding the light of the original, is the secret of Bina Miklal Deta'a, Chazal say that when you utilize the word bina, when a person expresses an understanding of something, well, that also implies that there was a process of a lack of understanding that preceded the state of understanding. Bina, if a person says that they have an understanding, it means that we can assume that there was a prerequisite of a mistake that led up to that process of understanding. And this is an inherent mechanism within the entire system of Pnimius HaTorah, that which appears to be a secondary symptom of some pre-original plan is in truth going to be revealed as being the only way that the actual plan can be carried out. It's specifically from within the ruins of the prior idea that the emergence of the second binyan is going to take place. And so the Luchos Rishonos shatter and they give way to the Luchos Shnios. It's the movements from the mind, like we said, from the clarity of the minds, from the desire of the mind to be able to lay claim to rationality by way of chakira, by way of identification and clarification, and by way of what is known. And it's a descent into the place of the heart. The heart is the birth of subjectivity. The heart is where the singularity of the second luchos splinter into the two ventricles of the heart, the left and the right chambers of the heart, where it becomes a split experience where there's the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara, where a person is caught up in their own most subjectivity. Subjectivity emerges from the heart. Each and every person according to their own heart. Lev Yodea Maris Nafsho, the heart keeps score for each and every individual. In the territory of the hearts, in the territory of Levavos B'nai Yisrael, there is a deep distinction between each and every individual, and no heart is alike. In the mind, in the conceptualization of reality, avada, there's always going to be the heart of the mind as well, which creates a certain subjective orientation towards objective knowledge. But in that territory of thinking, it's still, generally speaking, seen as objective. But when it comes into the heart, what we're encountering is the birthplace of subjectivity. It's the many pathways that descend down from the mind, and they allow for the various paths, Lamed Beis, Nesivos Chachma, all of the 32 paths with spell out Lev, which create all of the various frameworks in which a person is going to experience this world. That the Lev subjectivity becomes the place where each and every individual is going to be tasked to value their own subjective framing and experience of reality rather than only seeking the objective singular truth about reality. So the descent from the first luchos, like we said, was a descent from the mind into the second luchos, which are kisvu aluach levavchem. It's the engraving of the second tablets within our hearts themselves in the place of bina. If the first luchos were chachma, then the second luchos are bina. If the first luchos were the mind, then the second luchos are the heart. If the pre-traumatic Torah spoke directly to the intellect to try and domesticate reality by way of objectivity, the second luchos give shape to the subjective orientation of each and every person to cultivate meaning from within meaningless themselves. And in that place to build the heart of experience, to speak directly to the heart. Now, this is a fundamental necessity. This is not just a mistaken reality, but the Ikar Tachlis of Chachma, which is the first luchos, which is the mind, is to draw it down into the heart, into the second luchos, so that from the heart itself, it can reveal something more than what the mind was capable of revealing. So what is it that the heart can reveal that the mind can't reveal? What is it that the second set of luchos is coming to be megala? The post-traumatic Torah, what's it coming to teach us about ourselves that could not have been received by way of the pre-traumatic Torah, which was the Torah of the mind? Now, when we look at the two pathways that open up in front of a person, the mind and the heart, and the pathways and the highways that are opened in terms of the service of God and just the framing of reality itself, when it comes to seichel, when it comes to the intellect, it's about knowing. It's about coming to a place of clarifying the doubts so that I can come to a semblance of certainty. And yes, there will always be questions, and yes, there will always be an element of not knowing, which is inherent in being human. But nevertheless, the mind contains the possibility of the human being forgetting about its vulnerability and forgetting about the fact that it doesn't know, and slowly but surely getting itself into the place where it thinks it knows. A person with a seichel can walk around with clear categories of reality, and really they're never going to be forced to question those categories depending on what their life experiences are. The mind seeks out its destination. The mind is seeking to get somewhere. Thinking is a vehicle that leads towards the destination, that leads towards the clarification. There's a piece of clarity that needs to be revealed, and there is a thicket of confusion that separates my mind from what needs to be revealed. And the work of thought and thinking and intellectualization and the cutting through and the questions and the answers are all there to enable a clear path for me to get to the destination of what I need to know. And when I reach the destination of the known and I'm able to process that thinking, and I allow my mind to emerge from a state of potential into actualization, and as Rabbi Nachman teaches us in Torah Chaf Hey, my potential framework of thought becomes an actualized thought. And in that place, thought has accomplished what it needs to accomplish. Thought has a clear directionality. Thought, machshava is chashav ma. A person knows what they need to think. And so thought is oriented far more to that perspective of an accomplishment-driven perspective of closeness to God. When I think properly, I'm connected. When I'm not thinking properly, I'm not connected. When I think correctly, I get it right. And when I think wrongly, I get it wrong. When it comes to the heart, when it comes to the subjectivity of the heart, when it comes to the mesilos bilavavam, when it comes to the pathways within the heart of each and every individual, over here, it's a very different type of orientation. Because rather than having a point of origin and a destination, and the job being to get from the point of origin to the destination, and everything else is going to be considered a failure, the heart does not have a destination. The heart is the destination. The lave feels what it feels, irrespective of whether that feeling is going to culminate in something actualized. The only choice that we have in terms of the emotions that arise within the heart are not whether they're meaningful emotions or not meaningful emotions, but how much attention am I going to pay to these emotions in terms of really feeling them. That the heart feels what it wants to feel. It's not under the control of the observation-like conditions needed for thought. The heart is a flame. The heart is already in flames. The heart is the bira dilekes. That's what Avram Avinu saw. Avram Avinu moved away from the cool, calm, and collected space of the mind, and he saw the burning palace that is the heart of a Lev Yisraeli that is burning ad hashamayim, and he saw that, wow, this is a very different orientation. Instead of the seichel that wants to know exactly where it's going to arrive in order to accomplish its desired task, the heart contains the destination within the process itself. The heart beats. The beating of the heart is a repetitive recycling of process and culmination, as opposed to the thought which is directed towards something. The heart is encircling itself over and over, clarifying that which needs to be clarified and returning back to the same place to clarify again. And the secret of the heartbeat and the secret of the doifek and the defika, which is a knocking without entering. It's a knocking not for the sake of the door opening, but a perpetual knocking for the sight of connectivity that emerges by way of the heartbeat itself. The heartbeat is not leading to any place. The heartbeat is the destination itself. And so in the heart, we have to begin to let go of this notion that I need my heart, I need my feelings to go to a certain place. The feelings don't need to go to a certain place. The feelings need to be felt. The feelings need to be paid attention to, or the feelings need to be ignored. But the feelings do not need to be cultivated and directed towards a particular place in order for them to be reasonable and valuable. The emotions themselves are the midos. The emotion themselves, when I enter into ahava or yira or hisparus or nitzachon or a perspective of haida'ah or a desire for his kashrus and all of the various emotional hues that come along with those territories, the feeling itself is the accomplishment of that hergesh. It's that place of the murgash emerging. It doesn't need to go anywhere. I don't need to know what to do with this emotion. I can sit in the emotion. I can feel it. In the pre-traumatic territory where life is fundamentally about accomplishment-driven directionality. So then when I'm thinking clearly, I'm working, and when my mind is not thinking clearly, then it's wasting its time and in a state of hibernation, and I have to figure out other ways to be accomplishing. Because in the pre-traumatic perspective, we still conceive of the world as operating in that linear process where there's the point of origin, there's the process that will take me from the point of origin, and there's the end, which is the destination. But the heart is a place of igulim. The heart is a far more immature yet fundamentally higher expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, where it's a circular thing, not like the mind, which is seeking out directionality and accomplishment-driven orientation to arrive at the destination. The heart wants to feel that which it's experiencing, and in the igulim of the heart, it doesn't have to lead anywhere. I can be in that process. There's a yearning that is emergent within the heart itself that cannot be expressed within the mind. There is a yearning that is born out of the post-traumatic Torah that could not have been revealed within the pre-traumatic Torah. Because in the pre-traumatic Torah, there's a destination that I imagine that I'm going to get to. And as long as I imagine there's an actual destination, then anything other than the destination is not the destination. And therefore, I can't live the experience of being at the destination if I'm not at the destination yet. That's as long as it's rooted in the objectivity and the chachma of the seichel. But when it enters into the place of the bina of the mind, it's the perpetual opening and closing, the question and the answer, the nun sha'arei bina, which are repeatedly folding over themselves to create the secret of the direction and the destination in the very same place. That the heart does not need to arrive anywhere. In the post-traumatic shattering of the expectation of there being a clarified destination point, the heart reawakens itself to know that if there's any value that's going to be found in this process, it's going to be in the process itself. It's going to be in attaching a das to my lave to be aware of what my heart is feeling right now and to uncover the secret of daiga b'leiv ishi asichena la'acherim. The job is not to figure out how to get rid of the daiga in the lave. The job is not to figure out where the destination is as a result of this emotion, but rather the destination is processing it, working with it, feeling it, talking about it, expressing it, working through it, gazing at it, ignoring it, but the heart contains its destination within itself. A person who has a Lev Yisraeli, Rabbi Nachman says, Ein shayach lo makom klal. There's no notion of space. There's no notion of place. In the mind, the seichel has a place that it wants to go to. Thought always is orienting itself towards the next thought and the unfolding process of thought, clarification after clarification, birur after birur. But someone who has a heart doesn't have a place because there is no place to go. Everything is saturated. Every moment that the heart is open is a moment where the heart is opened, as the Piasetzner Rebbe points out. It doesn't matter what awakens the emotion. When an emotion is awoken, it is not our question as to understand how did I get here, where did this come from. The avoda is to lean into the emotion. There are no emotions that are wasted. There are no emotions levatala. I can either align myself to their fullness or I can deny their fullness or ignore them. But ben kachu ben kach, the lave will get what it needs because the lave is the place where the whole process is taking place in one fell swoop, as opposed to the process of the mind, which is a two-stage, three-stage process of postulations and observations and clarifications and hypothesis and conclusion, etc. The heart knows what it feels. On the level of the heart, there's a deep equanimity where it's good, it's bad, it's all what the heart is. And it's my job to frame the heart. It's my job to learn how to tame the burning fire of the heart rather than to direct the heart in a particular directionality. What we see is that in a very simple way, the shift from the pre-traumatic Torah to the post-traumatic Torah is a shift also from that objective-oriented process of thought, which says, what is the outcome going to be? I must accomplish the outcome. And it's a shift into that subjective space of the heart where experience itself is the destination. And that the heart of a Jew, when it's awoken, is in fact the truest expression of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's coming down into Metzias. Now, this is explained clearly when it comes to our ability to be Masik HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to machshava, when it comes to the machshava, we say, Leis machshava tfisa beklal, that the machshava is not capable of grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvaydo v'atzmo, that in the end of the day, as much as thought is oriented towards its destination, what we also have to be aware of with regards to thought is that it will perpetually fail in the attempt to arrive at its destination. And that's the very point, because the destination of grasping the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is an impossibility, obviously. So we begin with thinking that we can arrive at the destination, and then we end up not meeting the destination, and then we begin again thinking we could reach the destination, and then we forget about the destination. That's the various processings of thinking. But leis machshava tfisa beklal, the heart, the mind cannot grasp it. But the Zohar Kadosh says, Aval itvasu bereisa deliba. And Chabad Hasidus, the Rebbe Rashab, brings this numerous times, that even though the mind can't grasp its destination, the desire of the heart has the ability of grasping the destination. Now, this is the point that I want to try and clarify right now. We can understand that machshava lo itvis beklal, because we just said that the mind, the luchos rishonos, is the attempt to grasp absolute clarity, for the mind and thought to grasp that which it desires. And we come to terms with the shattering of the luchos and the shattering of the vessels to know that in the end of the day, the machshava can't reach what it wants to reach. And so we see we're foreclosed on the power of thought, and we stop relying so much on the luchos rishonos, and we let go of that desire for the ideality of an objective reality. Leis machshava tfisa beklal. The mind cannot grasp it. But what does it possibly mean when it says that aval itvesu beru'usa deliba, that it can be grasped in the desire of the heart? First and foremost, in accordance with the typical framing that we are oriented to, the mind is seen as being superior to the heart. So for those who are still holding out for this intellectualization of all things and the certainty that comes with thinking, so you see an upside down universe where the heart, which is more susceptible to the human tendencies and the animalistic desires and the imaginings of the body, somehow contains within itself a strength that is greater than the mind, which is abstracted from the temptations of the body, and it operates theoretically in the cool, calm, and collected territory of objectivity. So how could it be that the lave, which is so much more susceptible to pollution, can grasp what the mind, which is so much more refined, can't grasp? So that's one kasha. But the bigger kasha on it is, even if we say, like we're saying now, that no, in truth, the heart is higher than the mind, because in the pre-traumatic order of Torah, so then we're pigeonholed to that one particular path of seeking out the destination. And if I can't meet the destination, then I fail. And that's going to be the shattering of that desire for perfection that's going to be broken each and every time I realize that I can't be perfect. And naniach, that will say that the heart contains the subjective positioning of the human being in this world, and it makes room for the polymorphous experience of the self and its attempt to grab hold of things that it can't grab hold of, and it makes room, and therefore the heart holds more than it can contain, and the heart is of a higher level than the mind. But even if we say that, the notion of itvasu beru'usa deliba is very, very difficult, because we know when it comes to the essence of God, when it comes to the essence of anything, because the essence of everything is rooted somehow, some way, through spooky action at a distance, in the essential expression of a Kadosh Baruch Hu in Metzias. And therefore, just as we can't know the essence of God, so to speak, so too, if a person digs down deep enough to the basic fabric of reality, through quantum, through what we've come to know that we can't know, pushing the boundary over and over, what a person will always come face to face with is the deep unknowability at the heart of all things, which is just the rumbling, bumbling of the infinite letters that are creating shape and existence at every moment. So just as we can't grasp the essence of God, so too the human being can't really grasp the essence of everything, and everything in this world becomes an opportunity to throw myself into that abandonment of the mind and the surrendering into the faith, which is the only vessel that can help me face a world where I've foreclosed on the ability to know anything with certainty. But to say that the heart's desire has the ability to be masig, the depths of atzmusa yisbarach, that somehow, some way, there's a reality in which a person can grasp the essence of something to the degree that it exhausts all possibilities of moreness, is something that's tantamount to Tefira, because we understand that nothing can contain the infinite, and nothing can grasp the infinite, and ultimately nothing can lay claim to having an absolute seizure of what the infinite represents, or what anything represents. And so what does it mean when the Zohar HaKadosh says, Aval itvasu beru'usa deliba? So this is where I want to bring out the point that we're making here, that the mind can't grasp what it reaches for, because the mind is still operating under the assumption that there's a destination to reach as a result of thinking. That thinking seeks out the thought thing in a clarified way. And therefore, when there's a clarified way of thinking, we know that we can't arrive there. But when the heart stops seeking after anything other than the levaviyut itself, the heart in its movement itself, that's boer ad ein sof, so it knows that there's no destination to reach. And because the heart knows that there's no destination to reach, then we can say that the heart is capable of reaching its destination, which is the knowledge that there is no destination. Meaning to say that as long as machshava is rooted in that pre-orientation of that pre-traumatic posture, which believes in perfection other than godliness, so then the mind will perpetually be chasing after what it assumes its destination is, and it will perpetually be in a state of not reaching its destination, to the degree that the Zohar Kadosh says, Leis machshava tvisa beklal, that the mind will perpetually be reminded and forced to come to terms with the fact that it can't reach what it wants to reach. But when it comes to the lave, which is the post-traumatic luchos, which is the connection between the lamed and the beis, the lamed of Le'enei Kol Yisrael and the beis of Bereshis, in the post-traumatic Torah, where a person has foregone the belief that there is some absolute no ability to anything, but rather everything is rooted in the innermost point of the heart, which is emuna. So in that place, we can say that the heart can reach its destination, because the heart has foreclosed on the nature of a destination. And so the heart itself is teaching us over and over that the only way to reach the destination and to be toifes HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol is to come to realize that we can't be toifes HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because the heart has foreclosed on the desire to reach that fantasied island of absolute seizure, So then Chazal can tell us that the heart is actually capable of grasping what it seeks, because what it seeks is the realization that I seek nothing at all. It's the chuka of the chuka of the lave that needs to be awakened. Chuka, desire, yearning, ga'aguim. This is the language of the post-traumatic Torah. It's not a language of grasp. It's not a language of seizure. It's not a language of knowing. It's a language of feeling. It's a feeling heart. It's a lev ledas. It's a heart that will come to know the subjective truth that nothing can ever be known. And it's only in that place that mishiyesh lev Yisraeli in shaykh makom klal, because there's nowhere to run to, because the entirety of the world is folded underneath my heart in this moment. It's the lev ha'olam, that each and every person becomes the site of the yearning that emerges from the heart of a Yid. And Rabbeinu says in Torah Memches and Torah Memtes that just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to be Metzamsim as infinite light, so too a Jew has to be Metzamsim, the infinite desire at the heart of their hearts. Because in truth, within the heart, there burns that Roishem of Or Ein Sof, those Osios Harashimu, the irreducible traces of connectivity that are engraved within us prior to creation, and that emerge with us, and those engravings of the heart, even after creation, so that the heart keeps score to even what the body and the mind are incapable of understanding. The heart doesn't express this verbally, liba lafumya logalia, but the pneumius of the heart is fundamentally aware of the roishem, the rishimu, that irreducible trace of infinitude that is engraved upon the very fabric of luach levavchem, of those luchos shnios that are not new in their reality, but rather they were laying dormant within each and every neshama, so that each and every neshama can breathe life into the osios hachakikos, those engraved letters of the luchos shnios, which rest upon their very ventricles of the heart. And when a person draws the machshava of Torah down into the vulnerability of the heart, that's where our luchos shnios arrive again. That's where we're mamshich shleimus into the halal. But the heart in and of itself is always activated, is always filled. The avoid is to be mitzamsim the lev, to come to realize that there is a shape in the heart, that the heart is actually feeling something, but it's feeling something that doesn't have to go anywhere. Tafasu beru'usa deliba means that the mind is aware that the desire is the goal. The mind is aware that the desire is the goal, and that ultimately it's mati v'loy mati, and that ultimately I'm a balmum, which is Rosh Tevos mati v'loy mati, which means that I will never reach the destination, because there is no destination to be reached, because the destination is disseminated everywhere, so that every step that I take towards the destination, I'm already at the destination, even prior to taking the step towards the destination, even prior to thinking about the destination. All that exists is the destination. All that exists is the saturation of the Rishimu of Or Ein Sof, of that Hine Makom Iti, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, right there with you, in your heart, in the place that you sit, in the feeling that a person feels. One is encountering HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'cha amar libi b'kshu panai es panecha Hashem avakesh. The lave is whispering into the heart of a Yid each and every moment, seek out HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's the heart that's whispering, seek me out, which means to say that it's the lave itself that contains a trace of the infinite, which is the secret that Rav Tzadok brings from Chazal all the time, that the Shechina is liban shel Yisrael, that when I get down deep into the very recesses and the innermost interiority of my heart, I come to find the fount, the ma'ayan, that's yotzim mibeis Hashem, that's perpetually flowing downwards into the emotional framework and into the consciousness and the day-to-day, moment-to-moment subjectivity formed by Yid in this world. That the heart keeps score, that the heart is writing its Torah. Kisvu aluach libecha. And the way that we create this space of the heart, the way that we engrave the heart to be a place that is willing to live with a burning desire and not try and get to a destination that would satisfy the desire, is the secret of leis machshava tvisa beklal, aval itvesu beru'usa deliba. Because as the Rebbe points out, and this is in Tafshin Ayin Beis in Shir Manetz Chaim, so the Rebbe brings out this stira. And he says, how could it be that the mind can't grasp something, but the heart can grasp something? So the Rebbe is machalik between two framings of grasping something. There's the secret of ein doime lecha, and there's the secret of ein aroich lecha. On the secret of ein doime lecha, there's nothing that is similar to you, Rabbeinu Shlalem. That's the orientation that we have, that leis machshava tvisa beklal. There's absolutely nothing that I can ever do to grasp anything whatsoever. Luchos rishonos are shattered. And at that place, if all that exists is leis machshava tvisa beklal, then a person might, God forbid, come to question the value of luchos shnios, because if leis machshava tvisa beklal, if the mind can't grasp anything, then what value is there in the processing itself? So what happens in that place of after realizing Ein Daimelecha and Yichud Ilah, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so far beyond our graspability that there's no possibility of grasping anything at all, then we enter into the Lucha Shnichos, which is the secret of Ein Aruch Lecha. Ein Aruch Lecha is the secret of Tafasu B'Re'isa Deliba. Because even after we come to the recognition that we can't know anything at all, we then have to fall back down into the heart, which desires to experience something, which is experiencing itself, in the hopes that maybe we can ascend upwards again in the cultivation of the desire to reach that promised land, even though we know that there is no promised land, even though we know that there's nowhere to run to because everything is ever present. And if we lay claim to certainty, we'll never reach there. But if we make room for the suffix and the sipuk, we'll come to accept wherever it is that we are to draw down the light of Amunah in that place. The heart has to reawaken itself each and every time and say, even though I've come to the place of knowing that I can't know, and the first luchos shattered, but the heart still has to yearn. The heart still continues to do what it needs to do, even though it knows it can't fully reach what it needs to reach. And therefore the heart churns again to remind us that ein doimelecha, even though that ein oirich lecha, that even though I know that ein doimelecha mitzad yichadila, and I know that there's no graspability of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of the mind, still there's going to be this semblance of perhaps I can try and awaken the sparks of the heart to know again. And then from that attempt to know again, I come back to a place of the machshava, realizing leis machshava tvisa beklal, and then I fall back down into the of mina of al tafasu berusa deliba, and then again it's the perpetual cycle of coming to the place in the minds of knowing that I can't know anything, and that knowing that there's no destination of thought rather than dveikus and that which is present right here, right now, in the or ein sofiyut of it all, and that where is the MCU of the oilam? It's right here. And that what's the most important thing that I'm doing? It's right now. And when does Mashiach Tzidkenu come? Hayom b'kolo tishma'u, b'zeh harega, in this place. And then a person awakens within their heart again that no, I have to yearn, and then awakening ourselves again to bittul, and then yearning more and more. The secret of the heart, the secret of the perpetual yearning of the heart, which is only able to perpetually yearn because it knows that its failure to arrive at what it desires is not a testament to the weakness of its desire, because the heart knows that there actually is no destination for the desire. The imagination of a destination for desire is simply there to awaken the burning desire of the heart itself, which is perpetually yearning upwards, and that we actually have to make a tzimtzum to quiet down the burning of the heart. But the heart knows what to do. What it does is to burn upwards towards the non-destination destination, that placeless place that we're trying to find within the heart itself. And this endless yearning of the heart, this chuka salev, this hisayrus salev, the endless yearning of the heart that knows that all that it needs to be doing is the yearning itself. This is the secret of the luchos shnios, the cultivation of a feeling heart, of a leiv basar that does not become overwhelmed or broken as a result of not getting what it wants, because the lave realizes that it will perpetually be dissatisfied, not because there's not enough, but because what we're being fed is not what we need. The thing that will satisfy the heart is the lave ha'olam, is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not giving us full access to at this moment in the way that we need to, so that it would satisfy the yearning of the heart, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires the yearning of the heart. Rachmana libabai. Rachmana libabai is Rosh Tevosh Reish Lamed Beis, which is the gematria of Ab Sagma Ben, the four permutations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because when all is said and done, when all of the machshavos and the yichudim and all of the processing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in the world and the framework in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu operates, the tachlis shel hakol is to leave once again to Rahmana libabai, to awaken the heart, to yearn upwards in order to draw down more hasaga, and then to come to a place of realizing that I can't reach it. But the Iker Torah of the Luchos Rishonos is to give us comfort in the heart's inability to reach what it needs to reach. If we're operating in a perspective of Luchos Rishonos, the heart's inability to reach what it needs to reach is a perpetual reminder and a re-traumatization of the inability of the human being to operate in accordance with the way that we imagine we need to operate. But if a person has accepted that the lave can't know, then every yearning of the heart and every recharge of the heart to reach that which it needs, and the failure of the heart to reach what it needs, is no longer going to be seen as a re-traumatization, but rather is going to be seen as the very moment that I must lean into in order to connect to the depths of all things. And that secret of Lev Yodara Maras Nafsho. and the secret of that Mashiach Tzidkenu rests within the heart. Liba lefumya legalia, the tzaddikim say, the Gra says in Safed It's News, so the Commander Rebbe says, is that there are certain tzaddikim who are the hearts of the world that hold the secret of redemption. Because Maras Nafsho is also the secret of Emasai Ka'asimar. When is redemption going to arrive? Lev Yodea Maras Nafsho. The heart knows the redemption. The heart knows that secret of the Mar who comes to be Mamtik, the tough, which is the lowest level, which is the engravings and the heaviness of the heart, and the Demyonos Halev, and the wounds and the scars of the heart. And there's a Mar there. There's a Mar, which is Emasai Ka'asimar, the Mashiach that's revealed in the nitzatz of each and every person's heart when they reach upwards to Shemayim. And that's the secret of Lev Yodea Maras Nafsho. The heart knows the secret of being Mamtik, the tough, which is the 400 men of Esav, which Avram Avinu was able to be Mamtik with the 400 Zuzei Kesef that he wanted to utilize to buy the Maras HaMachpelah, in that place of the Dimyon of the Lev, in that place of the Kisuf and the Kedusha, in that place of the yearning, and those tough zuzin, which are mamtik, the tough ishe esav, that mark, that wound on the heart, is nimtak by way of the mar, of emasai ka'asimar, kishiyasim yechudim kamoischa. That when you're able to unify unifications, what's to unify unifications like the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh? To understand that the heart is the destination, and wherever my legs take me is where I have to uncover the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh awoken for us the Lev HaElyon, the fact that the Lev HaElyon is mashpia tamid, the Ne'imus HaLev from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Bina Ilah is mashpia tamid. We don't have to go anywhere. We just have to start from where we're at without needing to arrive at a destination. And this is how Rabbeinu tells the Maisa. This is how Rabbeinu tells the Maisa of the sixth day, not the sixth day, the third day, in the last tale of the Sheva HaBatlarim, in the stuttering beggar, who describes that he knows that his words are the most potent words in the world because he's learned it from the Ish Chesed HaEmes. He's learned from the man of true grace, from the man of true kindness, that his words are potent. And what was the story about the potency of his words? So Rabbi Nachman opens up into a tale within a tale within a tale that awakens us to exactly what we're talking about. That in truth, there's just two poles in reality. And each and every person is reality, which means that there are two poles within us. One pole is the har at the end of the world, and on that har stands a stone, and from that stone flows forth a ma'ayan, and from that ma'ayan it irrigates the entirety of the world. That represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It represents Hashem, who's being mashpia himself into time, into space at each and every moment from a place beyond time and space, so to speak, from that place of infinitude. That's the har with the even and the ma'ayan. And then on the other side of the world, there's the Lev HaOlam. There's the heart of the world, and this heart of the world composes all of the hearts of the Yiddish people, all the hearts of the Jewish people, the Yiddish hearts, and even the lowest heart of the Yiddish heart is a higher heart than the highest heart of something that's not a Yiddish heart. And this heart, the Jewish heart rests at the other end of the world, and it yearns and it yearns and it yearns endlessly, painfully yearning for the Ma'ayan at the other edge of the world, painfully yearning, painfully desiring to reach that place, to get to that place, to arrive at that place where it knows that everything is going to be settled and sweetened and leveled out. But nevertheless, it doesn't stop yearning. It doesn't go down from the mountain to finally take the challenge and to go on the journey to reach the Ma'ayan on the other side of the world to satisfy its cravings. Because it knows the moment it actually tries to satisfy the craving, it's going to expire. Because if it descends down the mount, it can't see the Ma'ayan and it won't have the thing that gives it chayus in order to continue beating. And therefore, the heart is situated in that place where it knows that it has to be engaged in a process of endless yearning that will not be satisfied, because the yearning itself is the satisfaction. When the heart is burning ad ein sof, it no longer needs to arrive anywhere, because the heart contains the secret of L'cha amar libi bikshu panai es panecha Hashem avakesh. Hashem, you are my heart, and you speak towards my heart, and you tell my heart to seek you out, which is the shirish of the heart. That's the secret of the Re'usa Deliba, that's toughest on the etzem, because there's no giloy whatsoever. It doesn't go anywhere. It's saying, where's the middle of the world? It's right here. The Lev HaOlam is right here. Why? Because my heart is right here, right now. And when we can accept upon ourselves the inevitability of craving and yearning and desire, and the inevitability of hishtoikakus, and the inevitability of not reaching what we want to reach, and the inevitability of not being able to make it to the finish line with the luchos rishonos, and the responsibility and the necessity and the fundamental reality that we have to cultivate the luchos shnios of kisvu aluach levavchem, to rewrite the Torah of yearning, to rewrite the Torah of desire, to rewrite that innocent second naivete that emerges when a person suspends their better judgment and they throw themselves into the Yam HaChachma of bittul betachlis l'mala mitam v'das, above rationality, above reason, and they allow themselves to be like a koif b'fnei Shechina, to be like a monkey and ape in front of the Shechina, which is kulo leiv, to be like an animal, like chayos hayar, to live with that place of the heart that is yearning without destination, and that's okay. And then to return to the mind's desire to cultivate destination, and then once again to come to the place of knowing that there's no destination, and then to cultivate more and more of a desire, but to live with the desire. The desire should not, God forbid, lead to the natural tendency of the heart to become dissatisfied. Because when the heart feels that its desire is something that needs to be satisfied, God forbid, that's when it begins to be frustrated and resentful against anything that doesn't satisfy it. And that's when it takes matters into its own hands and it tries to satisfy it. And in spite of the fact that the Bas Melech, the heart can never be satisfied, there are certain things strong enough to stop the heart. There are certain things strong enough to make the heart feel satisfied for a moment. And that's when a person is in the dangerous territory of the addictions of the heart and the addictions of the body. But a person who understands that the lave is not going to be satisfied and it's not going to be itmaleh, and kol nechalim hoilchem elayam vayam inenu maleh, and all of the nechalim, all of the lamed beis nesivos chachma that emerge from the mind, and all of the pathways of trying to grasp something with the heart will always lead to that one thing, and it's the unknowability, that shahanun that rests above the heart but not in the heart. And we're always perpetually in a state of al levavechem, that it's still upon the heart, and the heart has not been fully opened yet, because the goal of the heart is to open and close, and it's the secret of the dance that emerges from these two positions of the heart that create the playing field of the post-traumatic Torah, the post-traumatic Torah that gives us permission to be vulnerable in our process, not to celebrate the struggle, not to validate the struggle, but to accept the reality of the struggle. Because when we accept the reality of the struggle of the heart, it's then that we can begin to work with the heart. If the heart is trying to pretend that the world is still a world of the luchos rishonos, then the heart can never do the trick, because the heart is not the mind and the mind is not the heart. We assume that they were two separate elements of the body because they were so distant from one another. Now what we understand is that there's the heart of the mind and the mind of the mind, but they're not the same. They're not the same, and it's very important to mind the distance. And if a person is operating with a heart and they're looking at the world as if it was a world that deserves the mind, then they're going to be trying to satisfy their craving and satisfy their yearning, which is where the breaking comes from over and over. And if a person is operating the realm of the mayach, and they're working with their heart, so it's also not the right way to do things. A person needs the proper balance and to understand the secret of the shemesh and the levana. One comes out during the day, one comes out during the night. Both are perpetually operating together, but a person has to know the wisdom of the difference between when the heart is necessary and when the mind is necessary. But for the purpose of these shirim and for the purpose of the conversations that we're Be'ezras Hashem going to continue to have, what we want to do is we want to cultivate that place of comfort within the heart, that makom in the lave, that libi halal bakirbi, there's an engraving within my heart. And it's a halal not because I refuse to try and fill it, but because I know that even when I fill it, it's still going to be a halal. And in that halal, that's where I'm fundamentally going to be able to reveal that secret nakuda, that secret nakuda that emerges from the heart back into the mind, which is the shahanun, which allows the wisdom of the heart, the unknowing of the heart, the vulnerability of the heart to enter back into the mind. And when that playfulness of the heart enters back into the mind and Bina is oila back into Chachma, what it gives us is the Torah of Atika Stima. What it gives us is Keser. What it gives us is the creative flow of knowing and not knowing at once, of seeking out a destination and not seeking out a destination at once, that balancing act. That joy and sadness, that joy and sabrachenkeit, that both need to be engraved within the heart of Yid at every moment. The heart holds the paradox. The mind knows the paradox. The heart holds the paradox. And when the Rebbe Rashab went to Freud, what Freud basically said to the Rebbe Rashab is that the mind knows what the heart can't handle. And it was from there that the Rebbe Rashab went back and he wrote Samach Vav, where he reveals that Adraba Ipcha Mistabra, that the heart holds what the mind can't handle. That yes, the seichel has to be sholit on the lave. Yes, the seichel, the intellect, seems to need to have an ownership over the murmurings of the heart. But pnimius hadavarim, in the pnimius of the pnimius, there's a pnimius halev that sholet ala moach. There's a pnimius halev of ein aruch lecha, perpetually coming to the realization that I don't know and I don't have to know. And to conceive of the possibility of knowing is nothing other than the arrogant misunderstanding of what it means to be a creature rather than a creator. And when a person allows their heart to become a place of that vulnerable acceptance of not knowing, then it can churn, then it can burn. That's when the ga'aguim and the tshuka of the lave and that perpetual feeling of the heart not being fully satisfied, and that homesickness that rests at the core of the heart of each yid until the Lev HaElyon and the Lev HaUlam is niskala in front of our eyes, which is the secret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the secret of Emasai Ka'asimar, and Lev Yodea Maras Nafsho, the secret of Mashiach that can be mamtik, the tough Ishe Esav that rest over and cover over our heart. That's the secret of Mashiach Tzidkenu, who's found where? In the Krach Gadol Sheberomi. Rome is the heart. Yerushalayim looks like the mind sometimes. We conceive of the heart as that place of concealment, but that's where Mashiach sits. Mashiach sits wedged between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, between the battle and that dynamic process of the right and the left side of the heart. And Be'ezras Hashem, once we kind of come to this place of accepting the desire of the heart as not something that needs to reach a destination, but rather as containing the destination within itself, so that Chazal can say that Aval itvesu berusa deliba, that the heart can grasp it. It could only grasp it because it knows that huma koma shel olam, there's nowhere to go. And only then can the heart grasp what it needs to grasp, because it's grasping that it doesn't have the ability to grasp. And what we'll go into next week, Be'ezras Hashem, are once we've made ourselves comfortable in the territory of the heart, to learn about the different expressions of the heart, because the heart has a left and a right side. And the left and the right side, very much like the left and the right brain of Chachma and Bina, it expresses itself within the heart in the secret of Yisrael Saba and Tvuna. And in that place of the heart is going to be the emergence of the drives. It's going to be the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, which are ultimately Malachim. The Malachim are the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. On Friday night when we walk home and we have a Malach Tov and a Malach Ra, that is our positive drive and our negative drive. Those are the ventricles of the heart. Those are the two parts of self. And as Rabbi Nachman tells us, what we need to learn how to do is we need to learn how to send out the malachim of our heart. We need to learn how to appoint the shluchim in our heart, those runners who carry the Megillah from one place to another. Biyad haratzim, the blood that runs forth and courses through the heart itself, those are the ratzim. That's how we're going to be able to utilize through imagination, through the process of intellect and imagination merging, but to learn to understand the different emotions of the heart, different players of the heart, and to come to a place of drawing down more and more of the kisvu aluach levavchem, of learning how to engrave the luchos shnios on our hearts themselves, Be'ezras Hashem.